So, Baralorn, how has your research been progressing? Darahill asks, moving the conversation onwards. You aren't sure what Katia was so afraid of back there, but at least she seems to have calmed down now that the pressure is off her. You wonder what's going through her heads right now. Katia. My voice is still quaky whenever I read her name. Katia. Imagine the Countess in her underwear. It always works. In fact, you don't even think of her as a countess. Just to be safe, just imagine her as the lady. Take note of the salad fork. Don't be crazy. Put the knave on. Okay, I actually want to play that and see what that is. Give me a few seconds. Man, I wish I could just print that out so that my keyboard is closer to it to read it. Okay, not quite sure what that is. I wish I knew what that song was. I'm actually gonna write that down and try to play it later. You are now the Khajiitian. Everyone but you has forgotten to wear clothes. The wizard on the other side of the table is talking about how he uses rats as test subjects for his shielding spells. It's a rather fascinating topic. You listen intently while enjoying the salad the knave's servant brought you. Oh, pretend that she's a knave. That's what's happening. Well now, while we've distracted the Countess, it'll be safe for you to take off the knave disguise. You can keep her in her underwear if that helps, but come on, she isn't even wearing a crown. She's so not royalty. You've got something that works right now, and you don't want to mess that up. You don't know how many of these imaginary things are actually necessary to keep you from losing it, so your plan is pretty much to just keep all of them going. And if it looks like things are coming apart, you'll haphazardly layer more mental defenses on top of it and see what helps. Oh gosh. For instance, you're not even in a castle anymore. Also, could you do me a solid and upgrade the knave to the lady? I mean, there's nothing wrong with that word, it's just a slightly more polite way of saying woman, isn't it? Okay, that one is probably a good idea. While you're at it, you mark the glass of water to differentiate them from the actual glasses of water. What? Oh, pretend everyone's drinking water. Ask him questions. As a young mage, it's good to be curious. Well, you know you should stay quiet, but you don't really want to pass up this opportunity. When Baralorn is done describing his research on magical defenses, you ask him if he has any tips for a new mage who is just starting out. He says that the best thing you can do is to apprentice yourself under a trained wizard. Up at the university, it's even pretty common for apprentices to join the Archmage on his personal errands. Other than that, there are plenty of other mages who might be looking for an apprentice. Have you visited any of the nearby mages' guild halls, or are you planning to? He has connections at some of them, as well as knowing a few now unaffiliated mages who are frequently looking for new trainees. Ooh, unaffiliated mages. Usually when a mage goes unaffiliated, that's about the same term as saying that they're going renegade. If that gives you any inclination to issues with that. Reply that you've only had a chance to visit the Anvil Mages Guild so far. Does Baralorn have any recommendations on who you should talk to? You could also mention your up-and-coming trip to Kavach, but I noticed that there's a plate set for someone who hasn't arrived yet, and Chevaya's hinted that Archmage Travin might be attending, and it would be kind of awkward to suddenly have him standing behind you. Don't mention Kavach. That way lies madness. Yeah. Oh, did that person just try to have her mention all of the things she was told not to mention? Mention Kavach. That way lies intriguing and insightful conversation. You let your own curiosity be the tiebreaker here. Weren't there puns earlier about curiosity killed the cat? How does Katia know that Quillweave has a green stomach? You visit the local guild hall earlier today, you explain. They helped you figure out why you had trouble learning magic in the past, and also gave you some supplies to help you practice on your own. You've also had the opportunity to confer with a healer from the chapel and exchanged, Ideas with a mage you met north of town. Tomorrow you were planning on heading up to Kvatch to see what they have to offer. I think she means the necromancer, and exchanged ideas in big air quotes. Quellweave seems to notice your newfound courage. You get the impression she approves of your conversation skills. Barrelorn lights up at the mention of Kvatch. He trained at their mages guild, he says, back before the Countess offered him a position here at the castle. He doesn't know how the Kvatch Mages Guild is doing now, though. He hasn't been back there in a while, and nobody who has been there wants to talk about it. Quilloof says she doesn't see a big deal about the Kvatch Mages Guild. Whenever she's in Kvatch, it's just closed up. It only opens later in the day or something. None of the locals will give a straight answer about it. Yeah, necromancy. And this was one of the things we're not supposed to talk about. The lady takes a sip from her glass of water. She heard that Archmage Tryin started a petition to have the Kvatch Guild Hall leveled. Not sure what became of that, but rumor has it that not a single person from Kvatch would sign. Even Count Goldwine spoke out against it. Darahill suspects that nobody was willing to argue with Count Goldwine so soon after the death of his sons. That was a dark day for everyone, at least after such tragedy. Things can only get better for Kvatch. Necromancy to try to bring the sons back sounds like a plot. How are you feeling so far, Katia? You look pretty calm. You're actually doing pretty well. It's almost enjoyable. I mean, sure, you're in a terrifying situation and only making it through thanks to an elaborate web of self-inflicted delusions. That could come crashing down at any moment, but as long as you keep this up, it's just like being at a nice picnic with great food and no booze and a bunch of friends. At least you're assuming this is what it's like to have a bunch of friends. You guess in reality there's probably more clothing. As you understand it, friends don't usually undress around friends. Maybe you'll imagine up some rainbows to make this outdoor scene a bit prettier. This imagination bit has me wanting Sheogorath. All the Sheogorath. All of it. I was gonna comment on that. Sheogorath is the Daedric god of madness. And imagining stuff like this would definitely be something that's in his realm. Katia, be Sheogorath, do it. Summon Sheogorath to this realm. Wait, I just said that. You can't be the Daedric Prince of Madness. For one, you're not a Daedra, and two, you're not cray. Darn it, you're imagining rainbows, you are crazy. You come to the sudden realization that you're actually in a small room, with a real countess, lots of booze, and a bunch of people who are better dressed than you. Maybe she should just go to the temple and pray to Sheogorath instead of everyone else to give her delusions so that she's stronger. Don't actually do that, that would only end very poorly for you. But still. Well, looks like you have a better grasp on reality now. You're thinking logically. Logic can sometimes help overcome fear. So what? You're drinking water? You're looking, honestly, much, much better. And the Countess has been kinda neutral, but positively neutral. You just go through a bit of small talk, and even if you were imagining her to be a card, it was still her. It's fine. Okay, before you completely flip out, you're going to try to logic this. You were doing alright just a moment ago, and technically nothing has changed since then. You're in a castle, eating with a countess, not panicking at all, and you are fine. You can keep doing that, and you'll keep being fine. The countess isn't even that scary. And sure, all the drinks here make you a little uneasy, but as long as you only drink from your own glass, you should be fine. And if you absolutely have to grab someone else's glass for some inconceivable reason, you'll just grab Quillweave's. You're certain that action would have no negative ramifications whatsoever, other than being rude. Also, Now that you've stopped maintaining that admittedly impressive delusion, could you answer a question for me? I mean, I thought it was your recurring nightmare which caused your phobia of royalty, but what you told me about your childhood makes me a bit suspicious. I mean, sure, that dream would greatly exacerbate a fear of royalty to almost crippling levels, but it wouldn't create that fear. From what I understand, the king in your dreams doesn't actually have anything threatening or harmful towards you, and was in fact just kind of standing there. I submit to you that you would only find the dream terrifying, instead of boring or at most uncomfortable, if you're already at least somewhat afraid of royalty in the first place. It's an uncomfortable topic, but what in the world, you'll explain it. The nightmares did come first. At least that's all you could figure. You don't know why it happened. You lived in a noble's castle, but you had never actually met a king, or even seen one. But when you were about 4, the nightmares started. Every night it was the same thing, just you and the king. When you tried to be brave, when you could look him in the face and think, that's just a king, the dreams got scarier. He got twisted, fanged, and gnarled. Night after night it became the same choice. Be afraid of the king, or have reason to be afraid of the king. You swear you tried to be the bravest toddler there was, and it only made things worse. Soon, even the castle itself scared you. You couldn't function. You couldn't get out of bed. You couldn't even open your eyes. Royalty and everything associated with it had become terrifying to you, and you never understood why. It sounds like a curse. Also, it's a king of diamonds by the look of it, which could be important. So your family finally moved. The transition from castle to workers to farmers wasn't easy for them. They always let you know it was your fault. I wish you had some reason, as horrible as it sounds. I wish you had some teary, traumatic childhood story where you were abused by a king or something, but there just wasn't anything like that. No good reason for your phobia. It just came out of nowhere and everyone else had to accommodate it. Just another thing that's been ruining your life. Hopefully that answered your question. And hey, your robe is lovely, and don't let anyone tell you anyway otherwise. And besides, Balorn, Orin, and of course Quillweave are all dressed quite modestly as well. So I'm vetoing you feeling ashamed of your clothes if the only other people dressed better than you are the Countess and her steward. Pretty in a weird cat way. Okay. You'll admit you were probably a bit hasty with that. Everyone is dressed better than you remark. Thanks for the compliment anyway. Does mean a lot. And yeah, you're pretty sure the Countess knows you were the one who did that pineapple performance. You guess it's pretty cool that she seems to be playing along with the lies regardless. How's the salad? It's pretty good, but it looks like everyone else finished while you were spacing out. Yeah, I never really ate too much of salads when I was giving it either. Whenever I got a salad in front of me, I do usually take like those few tentative bites. The only times I'll actually eat like the whole salad is if I completely douse it in dressing, which probably isn't the healthiest. Also, Quillweave really likes that fancy water she made. It's kind of starting to show. I didn't know Argonians could blush. Quillweave is busy saying something about how it was a one-time trip to Chorrol to exchange writing tips with a colleague. It sounds like you just missed an amazing conversation. Oh, drunk blush, maybe just like embarrassed blush. Katia, refrain from drinking Quillweave's water for any reason. Katia, I would not grab Quillweave's drink if I were you. It probably has backwash in it or slimy poison lizard saliva. Doing good so far, Katia, although taking someone's glass at a dinner is incredibly rude, and not to mention unsanitary. Now, Katia, let me tell you, drinking from someone else's glass is about the rudest thing that would ever come up to pass a formal dinner. Trust me on this one. You don't want to do that. Okay, consider it noted, but really you can't think of any reason why you'd want to steal her water in the first place. You gave yourself some disaster avoiding points regardless. You haven't actually been keeping track of all these since you left. 130 something seems about right. It's a conservative estimate. QW looks like she's in a bit of trouble. Quillweave. Oh, QW looks like she's in a bit of trouble. She's helped you out quite a bit, so why don't you help her out by changing the subject? Ask about the main course. You go ahead and change the subject for Quillweave. It looks like the main course is being delivered, so you ask what it is. You don't recognize the smell. The servant explains that since this is a port town, it's easy for chefs to learn new recipes from afar. Tonight's meal is an old favorite of the Countess's. Thin-cut flank steak with paprika, red onion, and brown sugar marinade, served with blackened shrimp and a side of jalapeno rice. That actually sounds good. That actually sounds really good. You don't know what half those things mean, but it looks delicious. Start with small bites. It's a good way to measure your spice tolerance. Jalapeno dishes are not to be trifled with. Remember, don't tear in recklessly. Eat in a precise, delicate manner or whatever. Khajiit, ignore all of those people and enjoy your food. Ah, I forget what Ja means. For Khajiit, you put prefixes in front of your name, and it's sort of like a title that means something about the person. So Ja probably means something. It might mean unintelligent, like stupid Khajiit, but I don't remember. I never went to memorize those. Seriously, a bunch of hungry, toothy-mawed carnivores were just giving slabs of meat. Well, I can excuse Quillweave for this because she doesn't really have she's got an underbite. Her whole jaw has to move in order for her to chew. So she's got no real classy way of eating. But come on, Countess. I mean, at least if the Countess is doing it, then they won't look as bad. Actually, that's probably why she's doing it. There's two humans here. If they don't like you ripping your food to shreds, they can just deal with it for a little while. Take the jalapeno off the steak, request a glass of milk, and eat your food slowly. Very slowly. Sometimes eating spicy things slower just makes it worse. Hey, at least she's trying to be courteous. That might actually get her some points for asking for stuff. It tastes really good, but it is pretty hot. You ask one of the servants if maybe you could get some milk. You're pretty sure that helps cool down spicy food. You'll just wait until he gets back to finish eating. You can't imagine spicy food leading to any kind of disaster, but better safe than sorry, you guess. Casually ask what Troll is like in person, having never been there yourself. You heard Quillweave mention Chorrol, which you recognize as one of the two towns closest to the Hammerfell border. You've never been there in person, though, so you ask what it's like. Is it worth visiting? The Countess says it's a fairly nice place, if you're looking for a place of your own to settle down. She heard there were a few houses for sale. It's pretty far from here, however, by road. You'd have to go all the way to the Imperial City and then come back west, and the roads aren't as safe as they are down here. Varlorn asks that the guild there has some good references on conjuration, if that's your thing. You a conjurer? You're more of a set things on fire, you say. You confess that you haven't dabbled in more complicated kinds of magic, though, so you might not yet have found your thing yet. You just got your powers recently, and you're still a little overwhelmed by it all. You'll keep that in mind, though. Oh, here comes your... Oh. Oh, he did not just bring you a dish of milk. He does look a little upset, but I wasn't expecting that. I think I'm gonna leave this here. Amulet overload? She never got rid of all of her magicka, so it's all just kinda sitting there. It's probably not gonna overload though, right? Right? Well, anyways, I'm leaving it there. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. See ya!